What's up, everybody? Welcome to Philly. We're live on a Friday morning. Philly with John Marks. We're here. What's up? Not a football Friday because the Eagles aren't playing until Monday, but nevertheless, still a football Friday. Lot to talk about. A Phillies Friday as the Mets come into town for a weekend series. Scott Franzke on the call. That's right. He'll be on the show today, coming up in about 25 minutes, 8:25. Lots to talk about with the Phillies. And I have something on the Phillies in the open coming up in a second, so don't go anywhere. But normally Tyler Zulli comes on with, and we get the kind of a news update on what happened the night before and the day before. I'm not going to wait for that because I woke up this morning to Tua Tagovailoa, the news of him going down with a concussion. And by the way, Philly with John Marks on PHLY Sports is always brought to you by Bet Parks. Check out the Bet Parks app. Get all your lines, including the Eagles, minus 6.5 right now, Monday night against Atlanta. All right, so like I had watched every other primetime game since the beginning of the season. And hey, it's only week 2, so I'm not looking for an award or anything like that. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you. And I was watching the game last night till it sucked. And you get into the second half, and I don't need to stay up until midnight to watch a blowout. And that game was essentially a blowout. So I lasted a couple drives, maybe a drive or two into the second half. I was already fading, and I was out. So I wake up this morning. If you're just waking up and you haven't seen, Tua took a shot on it was a 4th down play. They were in the red zone, but they were also down big at this point. Not that they're not trying to come back, but that's why I wasn't watching it. And we have it actually, Tyler. Can we roll it for all the people that didn't see it or just waking up and haven't seen it? So here's Tua Tagovailoa going forward on 4th down. Go ahead and roll it. And
21 points, 4th and 4.
And you can see right away, and that's Al Michaels on Amazon Prime. We thank them for the audio and video. Right away, like if you're paying attention, you can kind of see that he's shaking, but it's really when you look at the reverse angle, you can see exactly what happened. And you had that, and like I don't need to see this anymore. The last time that we had it, last time that you saw it, he was in that, what do you call it? The pose, the fencer's pose, or whatever. What'd they call it? I had it.
Yeah, I think it's called the fencing. It's fencing.
The fence. So like his arms locked up, his fists locked up, or whatever. Looked like he got knocked out. This is the 3rd, probably the 4th concussion in the last couple of years, but we're also talking about that last bad one that he had where it was really, really scary to see on the field. So you had that last night. He obviously left the game. It just so here's what happens from here. Here's what's going to happen today. It's probably already happening right now on the Get Ups and whatever the other debate shows are. And it's a Friday. That's what you're reacting to. What happened last night? Concussions are always a big deal, especially when you watch it on national TV. You already had people last night. Des Bryant came out on Twitter and said he should retire. I saw a number of people that came out. Tony Gonzalez on the postgame show said he should retire. He just signed a huge contract literally weeks ago, right? Weeks ago, he signed a huge contract, and it's not just as easy as to say, oh, well, he should retire. That's going to be the discussion today. He should retire. And you know what? He probably should retire based on the head trauma that he's had the last couple of years. But yeah, it's tough to watch. It's tough to see. I don't know. I don't know Tua personally. I don't know if he was close to retiring before. I don't know if he's going to retire right now. If I was to venture a guess, I'd say no. He takes a significant amount of time off and then maybe tries to come back. I don't know. I don't know where his head was at, no pun intended, before. I don't know where it's going to be after this. But doesn't it just feel like that this isn't going to be the last time? Like what Tua needed to do, and you're playing the game. You're not trying to think while you're playing. You're just trying to play and react. But you got to protect yourself better. And on that play, if you watch the replay or you look at it again, he already had the first down. There was no reason for him to dive head first, and he initiated contact. Damar Hamlin, by the way, was the one that you can say delivered the hit. Really, Tua delivered the hit into him, and he ended up hitting his head. So, and when you look at the replay, it's like, oh, you can see how he got knocked out. It was just an awkward and odd way that his helmet went in, but he led with his helmet into a defensive player. Tua's not big enough to do that. He's had an injury history, not even the concussion stuff. You got to be smarter. If that means that you turn into a player that is throwing the ball away and ducking at the first sign of pressure, then you got to become that guy. But if he is going to continue playing, he can't take unnecessary risks like that. And it was just, it's horrible to see because like he's a really, really talented quarterback and player, and you want to see him be out there. And it's one thing within the pocket to take a hit and to take a shot where he can't defend himself. You didn't see it coming. He's waiting to the last second to throw the football. He takes a shot. It's another thing to dive headfirst into a defender after you already had the first down. He's got to protect himself better. But it's scary. The fencing posture with Tua. He was out. He had as he was like trying to get up and he was like half out. We saw that the last time. So it's scary. It is scary to see. Nobody wants to see that. And I saw the reaction of players after the game, and I didn't realize so many podcasts or players have podcasts and they go on after the game. Chris Long's Greenlight podcast, he does a mini post-game show. Shannon and Ocho, they do I guess that's the whole thing is what they do. They react post-game. So they were talking about it last night. This is going to be the story. And there's going to be a lot of athletes that are saying he needs to retire. There's going to be a lot of former players saying he needs to retire. Really, this is going to be Tua. I don't know how I would react. Isn't he 26 years old still? Tyler, I mean, he's not. He just signed his second contract. He was still under his first contract in the NFL.
Yeah, he's 26.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, here's what I would say. He's set for life. He just signed a huge contract. I don't think he can necessarily just retire without playing things out to get his money. I know that a lot of the money is guaranteed against injury, but you just can't say, hey, I'm retiring, see ya. Like, you have to go through steps and things like that, but you worry about the head injuries. And he's not big enough, he's not fast enough to where he can play in that manner. Even if he protected himself a little bit better, you're still worried about him taking those shots. So there's that. One thing before we get into the news with Tyler here, I'm trying to make a pledge today. And Scott Franzke is going to join us in about 15 minutes or so, 8:25, if you're watching live on YouTube or Roku. I'm making a pledge today. Yesterday, Tyler, we talked about it a little bit, and the Phillies have the best record in baseball by a game over the Dodgers. The Phillies are 30 games over 500. They have I didn't see if the Mets played last night. They have an 8-game lead in the NL East as the Mets come into town.
Yeah, the Mets did not play last night.
Okay, they were idle. So they have an 8-game lead over the Mets. And they've been fantastic as of late, the Phillies have. They have great starting pitching. They have a great bullpen now. Their everyday lineup, all right, they're nicked up, but they have veterans and they have productive veterans. I'm making a pledge right now. I got to get out of this whole, I'm so anxious with this team. Here's what happened the last 2 years. And like, oh my God, like, will they be hot? Will they have too much of a lead? And they won't have their foot on the accelerator when the season ends. And then they'll have a bye. And then they won't have played a competitive game in weeks. And I got to get my head out of my butt with that stuff. All right. Tyler Zulli, I am making a pledge today to be positive John and to not, I repeat, not continue with this rhetoric and with this narrative of, holy crap, I'm worried about this team. At some point, you got to enjoy the ride. And I'm a huge Phillies fan. My first memory in life, and this is the truth, my first life memory is the Phillies winning the World Series. I don't think I remember anything else from life than 1980, Pete Rose bouncing the ball on the vet turf after he saved Bob Boone and grabbed the pop fly. My first memory in life. I love the Phillies. So I'm making a pledge today to enjoy the run and not be so anxious. And I'm hoping other Phillies fans can as well.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I think that's a big step. Now, here's the thing. You can sit here and say that July was a bad month. It was a bad month for this team. They really, really, really struggled, right?
Yeah.
Pitching was down across the board. Starting rotations, ERA was up almost a full point, or was up over a full point. ERA was close to it as well. Bullpen ERA was close to it as well. Productivity had slipped. Runners in scoring position in July was not a pretty, relatively productive
they
stat.
sucked after the All-Star break.
It was a rough month.
Yeah.
The latter half of August was much better. Have been on a really nice run of series in which you've either split the series. Like, should they have won the Marlins series? They absolutely should have won the Marlins series. Taking two when you win Thursday and Friday night and only coming away with those two is difficult to swallow at times. But you sweep the Rays, you win the series against the Braves, you win the series against the Royals, you win the series against the Astros. You've been on a run now of pretty good form as of late.
Oh yeah.
I think that the concerns of July are tangible and they were real, but they have also, I think, subsided a little bit over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
9 of 11, 14 of 18. Right? Like that's a large enough sample size to, I don't care who you're playing. If you're playing bad teams or good teams. And I'm pledging it, which means I'm going to try. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have to help me out occasionally, and the people aren't going to have to be like, remember what you said, get off the ledge with the Phillies.
This is going to be John, sit down. We've written some letters for you. Dear John, you said you were going to be positive.
Positive John.
They lost 2 of 3 to the Mets, and you are no longer positive.
But I always want to be positive. Negativity is not in my nature. Sometimes it's just inevitable that you're going to end up going down that road.
Yeah, I think when you're as attached to these teams as we all are, negativity is going to happen.
Sorry, I'm already getting anxious thinking about it. Stop it. Scott Franzke, we'll talk to him about this coming up.
Being a Sixers fan has been a miserable life experience for the last 6 years, despite the fact that they've been a perennial playoff team.
Being a Sixers fan sucks.
It's tough, right? You see what I mean? Like,
I don't enjoy that. The Phillies don't deserve that treatment. They haven't won a World Series, but like the Phillies aren't the 76ers. No, like I don't like being a Sixer fan. I don't. It's not fun. Not fun. I used to, with Elliott Shore-Parks, I used to argue with him where he would talk about how successful the franchise has been. And I say, I know they haven't gotten to the second round. I'm like, I haven't had fun being a Sixer fan the last 5 or 6 years. All right, you have fun during the regular season when they have a great game and whatever else, but I don't know. All right, update us on what happened last night there, Tyler Zulli.
Yeah, not a whole lot to get into. Pretty light slate of Major League Baseball. So we'll start with last night's game. I know you talked about the bigger story is Tua's injury and potential health risks down the line. But the Bills did win this one 31-10. It was, as you mentioned, kind of a blowout from the start. James Cook scored twice. Josh Allen only had to throw the ball 19 times. Right, he threw the ball for 139 yards and 1 touchdown. They were up 24-10 at half. It was 31-10 at the end of the third.
Cook had 3 touchdowns total, I believe.
Yes,
you're
I believe you're
touchdowns.
correct. Yes, three touchdowns in total for James Cook. They improved to 2-0. The Dolphins are now 1-1. That was the only, obviously the only NFL game on the slate last night.
Yeah. So the Bills, and I was bullish on the Bills going into the season,
which is funny because I was not.
Yeah, and it's 2 games, but sometimes addition by subtraction works, and you lose Diggs, and it's like, all right, well, who's going to be their wide receiver? Josh Allen's an amazing talent.
For sure.
And I always felt like that they made mistakes, and Joe Brady coming in as their offensive coordinator last year and their play caller, they need a more balanced offense. They can't rely on, hey, Josh Allen, you go out and throw the ball 50 times, and then you're our only running back
also
as
the running
well.
Back, yeah.
Yes, and he's so damn big. I don't know how he stays healthy with the amount of contact that he was taking on. But your offense can't be, I'm just telling you, you can't just say, hey, quarterback, go bail us out, and you're our offense. It doesn't work like that. More balance. They run the ball very well. James Cook's good. I mean, he really is. So this looks like a different team. We'll see. We'll see. But I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, I don't know if they make the playoffs. Bull. This team will be right at the top of the AFC East. I think they win the AFC East.
I think a lot of people's concern, and probably justifiably so, is when you do lose Stephon Diggs, who's your number one receiver?
Lost a lot on defense.
Is it Khalil Shakir? Is it, are you going to rely heavily on Dalton Kincaid as your tight end? Lose a lot on defense as well. There was a lot of turnover with this organization. But I think that you're right when you can maybe simplify things a little bit, get back to basics a little bit more. Maybe it does wonders for a team. Now, you talk about, Josh Allen being a talent, and you're 100% correct. We talked this week about Jalen Hurts' decision-making. Josh Allen throws some passes sometimes where you go,
sure does.
What were you thinking? Who are you looking
Big
at?
interceptions in fourth quarters in red zone. Yeah, no, you're right.
So it's,
you're right.
Different skill sets, obviously. Josh Allen, much bigger, much stronger, cannon for an arm. But,
stupid decisions.
There's decision-making at time. But so far this year, he's been protective of the football. Like, second half of the week one and yesterday, protective of the football. You didn't commit a turnover yesterday. They should be the front runner to win the division, but a lot of people's concerns, myself included, was the turnover they had this year.
Yeah, lost a lot on defense. By the way, I don't know if they have enough talent to be a Super Bowl team, like you had mentioned. It's one thing to grind out regular season wins, but it's another to, all right, now you're playing the elite teams. Do you have enough offensive firepower?
Sure.
I don't know if they do. Now, the Dolphins on the other side of it, they're 1-1. They really weren't impressive in their first week, the win. And now if you're going to have Skylar Thompson, who knows how long Tua is going to be out for? I think Ryan Fitzpatrick said after the game, put him on injured reserve. That at least gives, say, like, listen, you're not coming back for 4 weeks. And you're not going to make decisions based on how many wins you're trying to get and try to save your season. But if Skylar Thompson's your quarterback, you can, even for 4 weeks, this team is not making the playoffs.
Yeah, you would be in a serious uphill battle at that point.
Yeah, and I had Tyreek Hill in fantasy football. Freaking crappy quarterback. What's his name up in Green Bay?
Oh, Malik Willis.
Josh Jacobs as a running back, and
okay.
Freaking Jordan Love's going down for a couple of weeks. So
not a lot of games played in baseball either yesterday. Thursday, kind of a typical day off for a lot of teams. The only game that really mattered in terms of standings watching was the Brewers played last night. They shut out the Giants 3-0 in the final game of that series. So as it stands, the numbers for the Phillies don't move in terms of locking up a 1 or a 2 seed. They still are 9 games. The magic number is 9 games to win the NL East. It's also 9 games to make the playoffs at this point. But it is 12 to at least clinch a bye. That is, of course, would be the separator between them and the Brewers. It's 15 to clinch the 1 seed. That's the separator between them and the Dodgers. So not a lot of movement in the National League because not a lot of games last night.
Right. Yeah. Phils and Mets. Here's how it lines up this weekend. Tyler, Quintana against Aaron Nola. That's tonight. Kobe Allard comes back here against Cervino, and then David Peterson against Chris Sanchez. So you need a good Aaron Nola start. You win tonight. You go out tonight, and Nola has a good start. You win the first game of the series. Takes the pressure off of all the other games,
especially with Allard going game 2.
Especially with Allard going game 2.
I think, and then when you are directly playing the team that the magic number is based around, you're not chopping off 1 game with a win or 1 game with their loss. You win.
2.
You chopped off 2. You go from 9 to 7. That's why I've been saying for a while, like, would I love to see 5-2, 6-1? Of course I would with the 7 games against them. You go 4-3. It's over. That's 8 games right there that you have chopped off over just against the team you're directly in competition with.
Yeah, I'm not going to have we'll just, if you win 1 game, it's okay. Let's win 2 or 3.
I get it. No, believe me, I understand.
Let's win 2 or 3. Now, on Monday when we come in here, if they do lose 2 or 3, I don't know how I'm going to react. I'm probably not going to go crazy unless they look really bad.
But you won't be happy, and I get that.
No.
One final story, not related to anything to do with Philly, just one of those games in college football that I get pay for play, right? I understand if you're going to go to the Big House or Ohio State or whatnot, but how about pay for play where you go down to South Alabama and lose by 77 points? South Alabama beat Northwestern State yesterday, an FCS school, 87-10. Now, after the first quarter, it was 24-10. South Alabama then put 28 up in the second quarter, 28 in the third quarter, and a measly 7 points, which I assume came from their,
you don't want to run up the
water boy
score.
and backup players. But they win the game 87-10 last night over Northwestern State.
Well, listen, I'm a big Northwestern State.
Oh, I knew you were.
Are they the Demons? I think they're the yes, they're the Demons.
It's a great pull by you if that is the case.
Well, it's because I Googled it. It's the only reason I know why. So let's see. Well,
don't admit that.
Yeah, so apparently their season got canceled last year after they lost their first. Let's see here. Loss. They lost I think their first 5, and then I'm guessing they canceled the season. Their last 5 games canceled.
Wow. And they're 0-3 to start this year. So it's not gotten any better.
Maybe they'll cancel it again. Did you have any players in college fantasy football on any of those teams?
You know what? I didn't.
No.
The last time I had a relevant skill position player from South Alabama, Jalen Tolbert, was there. So it's been a couple years.
Look at Gio Lopez, the starter for South Alabama. 15 for 19, 257 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's a very efficient day.
What a
and I'm
day
sure
for the kid.
His quarterback rating was very high.
It was like 800 because college football quarterback ratings are the dumbest things ever.
Let me do this. Scott Franzke's coming up in 3 minutes. I just wanted to give a shout out to Anthony Becht, who is the pride of Delco, former Jet, former Buccaneer, former first-round draft pick, went to West Virginia. His son, Rocco Becht, is the starting quarterback for Iowa State. I watched the game. They played Iowa. I watched the game last Saturday. They were brutal in the first half. They came back in the second half and won the game. So shout out to Rocco and to Anthony. I know Anthony's doing the Jets games now. He's the radio. He's the Mike Quick for the Jets. He's in his first year this year. But I've been following. I'm friends with Anthony's brother-in-law, and it's his Kevin's sister married Anthony. So so I've been following Rocco since he was in high school, and it was good to see him get that win. He's doing a great job. All right, well, let's as Scotty's going to join us coming up here in a second. Scott Franzke is the Phils and the Mets here start a series tonight. Let's talk about traveling a little bit here. If you're a Philly sports fan, maybe you were in Brazil, maybe you're going to one of these other games. Well, listen, if you do that, it's easy to keep track of your spending with TrueMark. And their financial mobile app allows account access anytime, anywhere. Easily check your balances, view transactions, make transfers, pay bills, and more right from the convenience of your mobile phone, right? And maybe you're planning on getting back into the housing market, right? If you're planning on buying a house, TrueMark's financial mortgage specialist can offer you guidance on loan options and terms that help assess your finances and credit score to determine borrowing capacity. They can help you save for a down payment and budget for closing costs. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more info, visit TrueMark.com/PHLYITY. There you go. All right. Oh, man, I can't wait for these games. So I was on, as I usually get, I get on the BetParks app first thing in the morning, checking out what are the lines, what do we got going on, what's going on with the Birds, right? So you had last night, Miami obviously didn't cover. The game went under, right? Birds 6.5 point home favorites hosting Atlanta. That line is held steady over under 47%. All the other NFL games, and we'll give our locks coming up later on in the program. But the only place I go is the BetParks Sportsbook app. It's amazing. Props, lines, very easy to use. And their online casino is amazing. So if you'd like to do that kind of stuff, they have a great offer for new customers to kick off the season. 50-1 odds boosts on your pick to win this year's Pro Football Championship. All new users who sign up and make a deposit will receive a 50-1 super odds boost. BetParks.com has all the terms and conditions. So the faves so far, Kansas City, San Fran, Baltimore, Detroit, and Philly. So you can also watch and wager. So breaking the action, hop over to blackjack, roulette, everything else that you see. Live dealers. So live dealers are doing this right here. Download the BetParks Sportsbook app and online casino right now. Get your 50-1 super odds boost on your pick for this year's Pro Football Champion. Limited time offer, new customers only. You must be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Michigan, or Maryland. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. BetParks. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, so we're frozen, but you can still hear me out there. So don't go anywhere. But we're going to welcome in the voice of the Philadelphia Phillies on the radio broadcast. He may be a TV guy now that T-Mac is doing all of his NFL work. Let's please welcome to the program for the first time, Mr. Scott Franzke. What's up, Scott? Can you hear me now? Now I can't hear him. No? Are we having technical problems here?
You got me?
Now I got you. What's up, brother?
How you doing?
Good. Are you starting a playoff beard? It looks like you have you're unshaven. Normally you're a clean shaven guy, Scott.
Some days, it's a radio thing,
But so you're doing more TV in September with T-Mac doing NFL stuff?
I think I'm only doing a couple more.
Okay.
This tomorrow and Sunday. I think that's it. I don't think he's doing any more after that. Or I mean, he will, but probably after the season.
Right. All right. So let me tell you where I am as a Philly fan. And you used to listen to me when you were driving in the park and you would hear my nonsense on WIP. I'm very emotional when it comes to the Phillies, really like any other team. The anxiousness that I get from Phillies playoff baseball is not like anything else that I ever experienced as a sports fan. And you would expect the Phillies, they're the best team in baseball. They're 30 games over 500. They have an unbelievable starting rotation. Their bullpen looks like that it's locking down. I pledged today, Scott, that I'm going to take the anxiousness out of being a Phillies fan because I can't stop looking at what happened last year and what happened the year before with being the hot teams entering the playoffs. The Phillies aren't the hot team entering they could be hot, but they're going to have the bye. They're not going to have their foot on the accelerator and like fighting for their playoff lives to get into the playoffs. Do you sense this from a lot of the fan base? Because it's not just me. It's almost like we just want the playoffs to get here because we don't want to think about everything that could happen in the playoffs.
Right. I think one of the things that people want the playoffs to get here is because the way guys have been dropping like flies here of late, you're just worried somebody else is going to get hurt for games that don't matter a whole lot. Now, again, they haven't finished anything. They feel like they've still got a lot to do. But the reality is that you're going to win the division. The numbers say that. I mean, unless there's an epic sort of falter or collapse. So you mostly would just want to get there healthy. And that's the big thing, is trying to get there healthy. And whether they're the hot team or not, I mean, I get what you're saying. I just think that nowadays, the way the baseball playoffs are constructed, you're going to have to live with some of that anxiousness, because until you survive and advance, you haven't survived and you haven't advanced, if you know what I mean. And whether it's a 3-game wild card series, a 5-game division series, 7-game LCS, that the Phillies should know from the experience of the last 2 years that, after winning the 2 games at home against Arizona, it's not over until you win the 4, right? And you've survived in advance. So I think there's always going to be some of that anxiousness, maybe more so for you because that's your personality, but
correct. So the starters still have a couple of starts left, but now you start to look at it and you say, all right, how are they going to line up the rotation? Zach Wheeler, it's obvious he's going to be your starter. He's going to be your number one. From there, you wonder what Rob Thompson's going to do. I guess you can just put Nola, you can put him in the number 2, but now you have kind of a quandary with Chris Sanchez and with Ranger Suarez, especially the way that Rangers pitched since the injury, and the fact that Chris Sanchez pitches much better at home than on the road. How do you think it lines up? And would you be surprised? And we know Rob's a player's guy. He's kind of an old school guy. They do use analytics quite a bit in the Phillies organization, which is a good thing. But do you think it's Wheeler, Nola, and then it's a decision between Sanchez or Suarez, or do you think that they taken some of the other things into account when lining up the rotation?
Yeah, I think they probably, they will look at it all, right? All those things you mentioned, who's pitching the best. There's no question that Christopher Sanchez is pitching better than Ranger Suarez. That's just obvious. And the other part of it is, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can phrase it, if you will. We're going to let Sanchez go on this day in game 3 or game 2 because we want him at home. And we have no worries about Nola. We like having Nola as a big game guy in game 3 or whatever. I mean, you can sell that any number of ways. I think, and I also think, while Nola is, he's got the track record, he's got experience, he's got so many years with the Phillies, he's got all that tenure with the Phillies. But you saw him this year. He was like, "Yeah, Wheeler should start opening day." Absolutely. And
right.
I don't think Nola cares. He wants to pitch. I don't think he cares necessarily when he pitches. I think there will be some matchups to be considered. Whether it's a team that you feel like you're going to need another lefty. You want the lefty to face him twice, for instance, rather than once. And by it, I mean, the real wild card is Sanchez, what you do with him. Because I think right now he's pitched as well as anybody. I think he's pitched certainly as well as Nola. He's pitched better than Ranger. So I think what they decide to do with him is to me, it's pretty intriguing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the one question that you have entering the postseason. And Scott, it's a great point that Nola, maybe on different teams or different guys, you would worry about the starter being like, hang on a second. You're saying he's better than me? I'm not starting till game 3. But with Nola, he would just kind of be like, yeah, all right. Like, yeah, I'm probably better on the road, or Sanchez is better at home. And he'd be fine with it. I think I definitely think the Phillies should, and then you're breaking up the righties and the lefties. I would start Sanchez game 2. He has been. Yeah. Tell me if you see when Cole Hamels was at his best, he could throw 2 pitches. He's getting strikeouts on changeups. Similar velocity when Cole was kind of in his prime, 93, 94, 95. Sanchez probably has a couple of ticks more on his fastball. But the changeup is the perfect pitch. He throws it so well. He's reminding me a little bit of Cole Hamels when Cole Hamels was pitching really well, just with those 2 pitches.
Yeah, I think the one thing for me about Chris that still is coming is the ability to slow the game down when stuff goes wrong. And we've seen it lately, I guess it was the last start. I mean, every inning he's got a base runner to deal with, right? He's got a leadoff guy on, whatever, but he pitches through it. And I think it's somewhat constructive to see that and to watch him deal with that. Because, I mean, one of the things that the great pitchers do, especially in October, is they have an ability to slow the game down. And it's harder to do now with the pitch clock. It's harder to take a breath and take a timeout, collect your thoughts and deal with it. But that's the one thing that, Nola has been there before. Nola has a little more experience in that regard. And even Ranger has, I think, a little more ability in that regard, up here. And I'm not saying Chris won't get there or isn't maybe there, but we just haven't seen it as much. So I think that's one thing that they probably would look at and would watch carefully as the games are going on to see how he's handling those situations. Yeah,
and he hasn't proven like Cole did during those runs that he's able to handle those big moments. And you're right, we don't know. He could look like a different pitcher coming out national TV game 2 of a division.
I mean, Rob has been saying for a while, and Rob even told me as early as late as last year, he said, if this kid, talking about Sanchez, he said, if this kid figures it out, he does have the best stuff of anybody on our staff. And he said, I'm telling you, if he figures it out, all the other things that go with it mentally and consistency wise, he said, this kid's going to be really, really good. And it's proven to be true.
And what a bonus, right? When he first came up, I didn't know if he was a major league pitcher. You saw the velocity and stuff, but everybody's got velocity these days. He's figured it out pretty quickly, and he was an all-star this year, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think he's one of the great sort of development stories. And again, I know they didn't sign him, and I know they traded for him but he was a minor leaguer, and but they've had to do a lot of work with him, and not just work with his stuff and with his pitching, but work with his nutrition and work with his
Right.
strength and work with his stamina and endurance. And he's a much stronger kid than he was when they first got him, and they sort of tore him down and built him back up again. And, now they're seeing the real fruits of it, because he really is a complete pitcher in that not only does he have command, he's got the velocity back, he's got great stuff with that power changeup. So he's looking like a huge win for the organization as a whole. I mean, top to bottom, all the different areas that deal with a player. He's looking like a real win for the organization.
And starting pitching so expensive. And I know they signed him to a long-term contract. They bought out his arbitration years, but starting pitching so expensive. And when you get a guy that's like this, it's like, wow, it's going to make you good. And by the way, he's pitching on Sunday, David Peterson. So that'll wrap up the series. We'll talk about that in a second. But just one of the reasons why that I said this morning was like, I need to stop with this anxiousness entering the playoffs. This bullpen, Scott, looks as strong as it's been maybe since the run of the World Series in 2008, especially with getting Estevez as the closer. So you have your closer. Hoffman has been great all year long, much better in an eighth inning than the ninth inning for me. And Strom's been unbelievable. And we're not even mentioning Kerkering and some of the other guys. So it cost them last year. Kimbrel cost them last year. It was shaky the World Series year in the series against the Astros. Alvarado's now back, 7 straight scoreless appearances, 3 straight 1-2-3 innings. If you have Alvarado back and you have those guys, man, if these starters give you 6 innings, the Phillies are going to be tough to beat.
Absolutely. I mean, because, obviously if they give you 6, if they give you somewhere anywhere near 7, it means they've probably pitched pretty well. But it also means, with all the extra off days and whatnot that are built into the calendar, you can pretty much use those guys, every game.
Yep.
And if a starter has trouble, if a starter looks shaky early, you are deep enough that it allows you to, we don't mention Jose Ruiz. They love Jose Ruiz right now. He is a guy who's going to go in and kill an inning and not be afraid, and he'll take the ball in the 3rd inning if you need him to, or he'll take it in the 9th if you need him to. So that they do have a lot of weapons, and I'm with you. I think it's as deep as any bullpen they've had. Go back to last year. I know Kimbrel gets a lot of the heat for it. But go back and look at those games in Arizona, and almost every one of those relievers that came in to get a guy that they didn't get. And that might have been Sir Anthony in the 4th inning. It might have been Soto in the 6th inning, but all of that has a domino effect throughout the game. And then all of a sudden you're left with no other choice at the end. So I do think that they, top to bottom, are way better as a bullpen. Like you mentioned, Alvarado being back, and it looks like he's back. With that being the case, I think they're a way better bullpen than they were at this time last year.
Yeah, and Thompson had lost confidence in a lot of those guys by the Arizona series. You remember that he went Kerkering over Sir Anthony in a big spot. It might have been the game that might have been the game they blew. It's definitely in Arizona, and Kerkering really wasn't ready for the situation. I think he walked a couple of guys, but yeah.
And he's pitching way better now than at any point we've seen him. It's efficient, it's crisp, it's all strikes, it's getting ahead in counts and forcing teams to chase.
Right.
That sweeper is great, but it's not as great when you're down 2-0.
No, it's not.
Because it's a pitch that doesn't always finish for a strike, and you're trying to get chase with it. And I think he's light years better than he was at this time last year.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Scott Franzke, you have the Mets coming into town for 3. I think there's going to be a lot of Mets fans in Citizens Bank Park. It's going to feel like old times when the Phillies and Mets were both good. Got pretty rowdy down there at the bank.
Yeah, it did. When I first got here, it was always among my favorite games of the year, the Phillies and the Mets. And I think I read that they're going to finish with winning records for only the 10th time, and since the Mets came into existence. So they've been rivals for a long time, but the fact that they're both good makes a big difference, and it adds a lot of energy to it. And the Mets are the closest pursuer. I understand it's still a distance away, but if they came in and won 3, then all of a sudden then your anxiousness would go through the roof, I think.
My pledge is over. If they lose 2 or 3 this weekend, we'll see. But yeah, this is the last hoop you have to jump through, because they have 7 games against the Mets before the end of the season. So you can see how it would turn. The Mets win a couple games this weekend. God forbid they win them all, and then all of a sudden it totally changes everything. But
yeah, we always talk about 07 and the 7.5 with 17 to play or whatever.
Yep.
And one of the reasons they were able to do that is because they had a lot of games head to head.
Yeah.
Just like this, they won them all. They went into New York and swept, and then I think went to St. Louis maybe, and they had some crazy games there. But yeah, it's head to head stuff that matters.
Those the games at Citizens Bank Park that year, in the afternoon, some memories I'll always carry with me. It was Phillies hadn't been good for a long time, and then that's the way you get into the playoffs. That was so much fun. How's life with Larry? How's he doing? I haven't talked to him. I'm sure he was very upset when Castellanos got thrown at. I heard some of that back and forth with you guys.
Yeah, well, I think he was happy that the umpires handled it the way he thought that they should, which was diffuse the situation, eject the pitcher, and move on. And they didn't, there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare beyond that. So, yeah, he's good. He's great. We took him on the road for a regular season road trip, something he hasn't done in 8 years, I think. And it was fun to see him wandering around and trying to figure out when the bus time was and how to get from the hotel to the ballpark. And, all the hotels have changed. We've changed hotels from the last time he was out on the road.
Oh, no.
So, but he'll travel in the playoffs. So.
Right. Well, you'll have to – that's just more work for you. Now you have to make sure knows what time the bus is coming, and, you got to walk him on the bus. He's getting up there in age, Scott.
What's really good is that Greg Murphy is on the staff, and Greg's very detail-oriented, and he can, shepherd him around and make sure he's there.
What was I saw a picture of all you knuckleheads in a car. Were you driving down to Anaheim for the road trip? You were going from somewhere in California, driving down.
I think that was San Diego to Anaheim, or Anaheim to San Diego. I don't know.
It's like an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it was a couple hours. I mean, we would have been on the bus or in a car. We could leave a little bit earlier if we get a car and stop at In-N-Out Burger and stuff like that. So that was the basic idea there.
Well, Scott, I appreciate a few minutes, man. I know you're very busy. Great to catch up with you. How's the family doing? How are the kids doing?
Everybody's great. Just got back, dropping them off all at school, and my son started high school last week, which is crazy to me that it's going by quick. So
I was thinking about it last night, because I remember when he was born. It's God, you've been here too long. We're getting too old, Scott. He's in high school. Yeah,
it's kind of crazy, but they're excited. They're gearing up for another run through the playoffs. That's been some of the most fun for me the last few years in October, is seeing the kids be able to experience it, seeing the kids, they grew up and they didn't see the Phillies win really. And,
right.
My son kept saying, hey, if they ever go to the playoffs, can we go? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they finally get a playoff bid, and it turns out all 3 games are going to be in St. Louis on the road. So I got to buy 4 plane tickets and get them out to St. Louis at the last minute or whatever.
Not this year.
Well worth it for them to be able to experience it and see it and see what it's all about. And they're Philly fans all the way for sure.
Yeah. So they were too young to remember the first run, I guess, huh?
Yeah, my son was born in 2010, so he was an infant in the infant, in the baby waiting room or whatever when Doc threw his playoff no-hitter. But he doesn't have any memories of those days.
Wow, that's amazing.
He had memories of 199 losses or whatever in 2016.
Pete McCannon lost it, the Pete McCannon era, where that's it's like me. I was a mid '80s, late '80s Philly. Like, I remember the World Series. I was very young, but I'm a Steve Jeltz, Don Carmen, Kenny Howe Philadelphia Phillies fan. I'm a lot like your son. I grew up during a lot of bad Phillies times, so
sure,
we've earned this.
Yeah, but he's enjoying the good stuff. That's for sure.
Scott, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Good
Yeah,
catching
Johnny,
up
good
with
to
you.
see you, buddy.
Talk to you soon.
All right, see ya.
All right, there he is, Scott Franzke. Love him. Phillies have, and I got to do some reads here. Phillies have between T-Mac and we're trying to get T-Mac on next week. Between T-Mac and Scott and Crucker and Larry Anderson and Stocker, everybody have an amazing broadcast crew.
It's a great group for sure. I have been the biggest Scott Franzke champion for a really, really long time. Even working at the opposing station from the flagship of the Phillies, I've always said, like, he's the best.
Yep.
The best. You know what's funny, though, John? I almost feel like it's a rite of passage for us to be brought into bad Phillies teams. So, like, you brought up the guys, right? Like, my first remembrance of the Phillies was, like, just post Scott Rowland era Phillies. So it was, it was like that era in between Scott Rowland and Jim Thome was just like no man's land.
Right.
And like the Brandon Duckworths and the Amari Telemacos and
they
Omar
were
Dahl.
The Larry Boa Phillies were that close to making the playoffs. If they played today, they would have been a playoff team.
Yeah,
but they couldn't get over the hump.
The series against Houston, in I think it was either I want to say either 04, 05 maybe. I forget what year it was, but the year they had a series against Houston, and I think maybe Billy Wagner might have blown the save.
He blew it. Yep.
Yeah, that was like my first like, okay, maybe the Phillies could be a playoff team this year.
Yep. Damn. All right, let's talk about Rite Aid for a second. Listen, if you're like me, I'm diabetic, ton of prescriptions. I was at the pediatrician with the kids, with the youngest yesterday. I am constantly at Rite Aid picking up prescriptions, buying Tylenol, buying kids Motrin. My wife always seems to have some type of illness or sickness. So listen, if you have a lot of prescriptions, that's why you want to go to Rite Aid. My pharmacy account at Rite Aid, you can refill your prescription, get personalized care recommendations. And how about this? Sign up for prescription notifications. They tell you when the prescriptions are ready. All you need to get started is a script at Rite Aid. RiteAid.com/mypharmacy. You can enroll in automatic courtesy refills. It's free and easy, and most of your prescriptions will qualify. And just sign up through the My Pharmacy account or just go talk to the Rite Aid pharmacist. Again, restrictions may apply. And you can sync all your medications. Check this out. If you know you have 4 or 5 medications, sync them up and you pick them up in one visit. And your other family members, too. Just ask your local Rite Aid pharmacist to get started. And if maybe you're at a different place right now, transfer your prescriptions today. Set up medication reminders, enroll in prescription notifications. Just download the Apple App Store app or go to Google Play. RiteAid.com/transfer. Rite Aid caring pharmacist ready to answer your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything else at Rite Aid that you need. Again, RiteAid.com/transfer. All right, what's the jingle? Ace is your place for your health for hardware, folks, or whatever it is, right? It's a great jingle.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Whoever came up with that jingle should have made a lot of money, all right? But this is even better than that jingle. How about Ace Hardware Home Services? That's right. If you have any type of a repair thing, right? Maybe your faucet's leaky, your heater's not working, plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, Ace Hardware Home Services, the power of the Ace brand, they're striving to be the best, most trusted provider of home preservation services. So, wide range of residential maintenance, installation, and home repair services, free estimates, equipment installation. All right, you get something. You get a new refrigerator, but you're like, well, I don't know how to hook it up and get the water going through it. Boom! Get them out there. All right? And it's not going to kill you. Emergency services are available when you need them the most. Here's how you get it. AceHardwareHomeservices.com. Schedule an appointment. Get an estimate. Sunday morning, your heat stops working. Boom! Call them. They'll get out there. They're your local team right there. Service you can trust and satisfaction is guaranteed. They will make it right no matter what. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online. AceHardwareHomeservices.com. Get started on your next project today. All right, there you go. We'll give our locks coming up here in a second. Give me your prediction on the Phillies this weekend there, Tyler Zulli. They have 3 against the Mets. Here's how it lines up. Nola, Allard, Chris Sanchez. Quintana goes tonight, Servino tomorrow, David Peterson on Sunday. What do you got?
Yeah, I think the Mets have been one of the hottest teams in baseball for, I don't know, a month and a half now. They're playing some really good ball. They're 14 games over 500 now. This is going to be a really good series. I would venture to say I think that the Phillies take 2 of 3 in this one. I think they command the pitching matchup a little bit. But Quintana's been good this year. Severino's been good in the second half. I think you can't get swept. You absolutely cannot get swept.
No.
One of three is going to be okay. You win 2 of 3, you've really put your foot on the gas pedal. I think they can win 2 of 3 in this one. I would not call a sweep for either team in this scenario. Too much going on, too much vitriol. Divisional race. I think they win 2 of 3, but I don't think that either team gets swept.
I'll just leave it like this. I need to see urgency out of this team this weekend.
That's fair.
I need to see a playoff type atmosphere. Mets fans are going to be down there. The Phillies fans are going to be loud. It's going to be a good back and forth. I need to see playoff urgency. This very easily could be a preview to a series in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to mention getting swept. I'm not going to mention losing 2 or 3, which very easily could happen. You got to win 2 or 3 against the Mets. You win 2 or 3 this weekend, it's over. Like it's pretty much over anyway. The NL East is pretty much over anyway. You can't leave that door cracked for the Mets to get hot, because then mentally it's going to get in the Phillies' head, and it could totally screw the season.
Well, we talked about it, right? When you are directly playing the competition, it's 2 games apiece instead of 1. You get this thing down to 5 by the end of the weekend. I mean, you could very realistically clinch the division by, the end of next week, the middle of, the next weekend series.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you said, the magic number is what it is. You win 2 or 3 this weekend.
Significant.
It's significant.
You lose 2 of 3, like you said. You leave the door open a little bit. I think maybe a little bit of doubt creeps in, just a little bit. You lose 2 of 3, you're still you'll be 7 up with like 13 to play. The numbers are still overwhelmingly in your favor, but you don't want to put any extra onus on yourself that you don't have.
But then you have 4 against them.
Sure.
If you weren't playing them in that final series, you would say it's over. Like, it doesn't matter. This is over. When you're 4 head-to-head, now you worry about...
7's a lot of games. You can make up a ton of ground.
Man, and you're not kidding. All right, we have our locks coming up here. Now, I just want to say this. All right, what was your record last week? So we do 3 locks, and then we pick the Eagles game. So
including the Eagles game, which you and I both picked correctly.
Correct.
I was 3-1.
Nice.
You got some rough luck. I think you got hit with a hook in the Bills game,
but it was also a kickoff return for a touchdown. That screwed me.
You got some bad luck. So a 1-3 week for you.
So technically, I was 1-3. Really, I was better than 1-3. I mean, I like in my head, in my head, I wasn't 1-3, but like as far as how it paid out, I was 1-3. So whatever. I'm trying to pull these up right now. All right, so we're not going to give the Eagles game yet. All right, so I didn't give you the Eagles game yet. So we'll do that on Monday. But
okay.
let's start out with the Cowboys. Cowboys last week. I don't know why I didn't pick the game, but this happened with a lot of these games where I was like, why didn't I pick that one? Why didn't I pick that one? The Cowboys were very impressive last week, and the Saints in victory against a terrible Carolina team, they got their win. So in week 2, it's kind of a sense of urgency for a lot of teams. Both teams won, so you're not desperate to not go 0-2. But the Cowboys are clearly the better team. The Cowboys were rolling last week against a pretty good Cleveland Browns team. I expect them to do the same on Sunday. Let's go with the Cowboys -6 over the New Orleans Saints. So the Ravens lost. Very easily could have won that game. The Raiders stink. They lost as well. So you have 2 0-1 teams that are going. The Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. The Raiders are not. Ravens are 8.5-point favorites at home. Lamar Jackson doesn't have a great winning percentage as far as covers as favorites. I don't care in this one. The Raiders aren't good. The Ravens are good. And I think they respond to a loss like that and to Lamar not playing well. I think they respond with a blowout win. So I'm going to take Baltimore Ravens -8.5 over the Las Vegas Raiders. And my last one here. All right, so the Jets. Again, this is one of these, how do you respond to a loss? The Jets got blown out by San Francisco. That game was not competitive. Aaron Rodgers wasn't even playing in the fourth quarter. They pulled him. One of their touchdowns came from Tyrod Taylor. All right, Tennessee. How's Will Levis as an NFL quarterback there, Tyler?
Not good.
He stinks. Pretty good Jets defense. Aaron Rodgers is fine. the Jets are going to blow the Titans out. Take the New York Jets on the road -4 over the Tennessee Titans. That's a 3-0 week. And if I don't go 3-0 out of those 3 games, Tyler Zulli is going to give you money, or maybe not.
I'm giving money.
Well,
I don't have.
That's what
money.
the Carnival Barkers all used to say. I was just like 5-0, or the rest of the season's free.
Yeah, I don't know how they make any money off those shows, to be honest with you. But
because
I don't have any
because
money.
you get idiots that call and pay, even if they call and pay and pay for it. But a lot of times the Carnival Barkers, they give different games, different results of games in other markets, so they're not actually making the same picks.
So they're
everywhere.
hedging their own bets against themselves.
Correct.
It's actually not a bad model. I mean, it seems like a ripoff, but
you don't hear a lot of the Carnival Barkers anymore.
No, it's probably for the best.
It is for the best, yeah.
Yeah, they were some rough shows. All right, so we flashed your picks across the screen. Here are my 3. I am going to go with two teams that looked like garbage to continue to look like garbage, and one game that I just think could end up being a really good game. I'm going to start in Carolina with the Panthers and the LA Chargers. Now, Harbaugh seemed to implement his Harbaugh football style pretty much right away. The Chargers scheme is pretty simplistic. They want to run the ball. They run the ball efficiently. J.K. Dobbins looked really, really sharp in the first game, which is a little bit surprising to me, coming off of multiple injuries and a team that wasn't quite sure who was going to be their starting running back. They let Austin Eckler go at the end of the year. They ran the ball for really, really efficiently. The Panthers, meanwhile, gave up 180 rushing yards to the New Orleans Saints last week, with a team who, by the way, the Saints were projected to be one of the worst offensive lines in football this season. Gave up 180 rushing yards to the Saints. And now, by the way, the Carolina Panthers are without probably their best defensive player, defensive tackle Derek Brown, who's out for the season. This is going to get worse before it gets better for the Panthers. The line is down to 5.5 on Parks, on BetParks. I'm going to take the Chargers to win this game, and I think win this game pretty convincingly.
I was bullish on the Chargers this year for the Jim Harbaugh reason. When you have a bad head coach and you bring in an excellent head coach, now he'll flame out because he's a maniac. But the difference between the idiot that they had there previously and Jim Harbaugh is significant.
Brandon Staley was terrible.
Head coaching in the NFL is like any other sport, and Harbaugh is a significant upgrade. But anyway, we got to get through these. Go ahead.
So I'm going to go to the other game with a team that just looks like they were terrible last week. I'm going to pick against the Cleveland Browns again this week. They go to Jacksonville. It is a weird line. It's a -3 for Jacksonville, who blew a lead last week. Trevor Lawrence needs to be more efficient with his wide receivers. Evan Ingram, 1 catch. Christian Kirk, 1 catch. Brian Thomas looked really good in his debut, but I think Trevor Lawrence needs to spread the football around a little bit more. I don't think that the Jags slip up again this week. I know it's a little bit of a fishy line at home, but I think Deshaun Watson right now is just playing some really, really bad football. I'm going to take Jacksonville -3 in this one.
Okay.
Then the last one I think could be a really good game. It's a rematch of last year's NFC divisional round. We go to Detroit, where the Lions are hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs throttled Washington in Week 1. They won by 27. The Lions looked really good in a competitive game against the Rams on Sunday Night Football last week. This is a really, really large line, which is telling me that Vegas thinks the Lions are going to blow the doors off of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not so sure about that.
I agree.
I'm taking the Bucs on the road with the points. It's up to 7.5 now. I don't think Tampa Bay wins this game, but I think it's a much closer game than Vegas is saying. I'm going to take the Bucs with the points, 7.5.
I thought about this one, and I was your exact thought process, which was the Bucs are a good team. Like we can stop pretending, the South stinks. No, Baker Mayfield, he's not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But with good pieces around him, and he has great weapons, he has good offensive line, he has a good defense. I like the pick. I stayed away from it because it is a Lions line. So again, week 2, you're like, all right, like maybe the Bucs aren't as good. The Bucs are a good team. I agree with you.
So that's what I've got. I've got Chargers -5.5, Bucs +7.5, the Jags -3.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Tyler. Just wanted to give a shout out to all the diehards out there. What up, diehards? Have a great weekend. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Just looking at the chat here, if you were watching, the screen was frozen at not exactly a great moment.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I wish I could have done something. I mean, that's just technology being technology.
So some people say I was picking my nose. Others were saying it was an eye booger that I was doing. But I was like this.
Wiping your eye, and it just caught you at a bad time.
Again, so like I've been watching I've been going back and watching them, all the shows, because I want to see if I'm saying something annoying or doing something that's annoying. I'm not. I have a radio background. I never thought I'd be doing anything in front of a camera or a TV. And it's much different when you have the camera on you all the time and you don't realize, you're like, oh, look, that's so stupid. So we're working on it. My friend Taylor out there also said to get the laptop off of my lap.
Yeah, they say that's not good for you know.
It's not good for anything. Now, luckily, I'm not having any more children. But so just so people know, we're going to have a new set. I don't know when or what. I want a desk. I do not like the setup that it is right now. Maybe it's good for like if there's like some of the other shows where they have 2 or 3 people. I do not like this setup. So hopefully we're going to have a desk, if not next week, the following week, and then it'll look a little bit different because I do not like having that laptop on my lap. I don't. And if I put it down right here, it's very difficult to see. So there you go. But I do need it because it is difficult to see without it. But yes, we had some technical issues which we're going to have, but Tyler very quickly solved them. We didn't lose the Franzke interview, which was the most important thing.
Well, that's the thing. He was there. We could see him. We could hear you. It was just you were in an unfortunate position. And you know what the funny thing is, John? You know when they say this all the time, and the fact is you're frozen again. We can't make this up. You're frozen again. Do you know what we did to fix this?
Unplugged it?
Unplug and plug it back in. Watch. We're going to... Okay, you're back.
We're good.
We did it. We literally unplugged it. I tried to fix a camera. I tried to change your shot. Andrew Frazier, who's the producer of Anthony's show, comes in. He goes, just unplug it. And it worked, of course.
It does. My mom on Saturday calls me. She's like, I can't access on my phone. I can't access the internet. It doesn't work. Your father's phone's the same way or whatever. And I said, power it on, power it off. Like, and that normally does the trick. Like, power it on, power it off. But it's not. It doesn't. And then she powered it off, powered it back on, and what do you know? Of
course,
it started working again. So there you go. All right. So we'll have the picks up there. And by the way, for everybody watching, thank you. We're available on YouTube on demand. I had a friend text me last night and was like, your show's impossible to find. I said, well, you're a bad Googler if my show's impossible to find. But anyway, maybe not everybody's as good of a Googler as me. So if you go to any of my social media pages, at John Marks Media, JONMARKS Media, at John Marks Media, there's that link tree that you click on. You click on the link, and then it takes you to the YouTube page, so our show YouTube page. It takes you to the podcast page if you want to listen to the audio version of this. Boom, Apple Podcasts, wherever you watch your podcast, it takes you right there. My Instagram, my Twitter, my personal YouTube page. So that's a great way to do it. Otherwise, just Google it, all right? Google it, PHLY Sports, and that's what it is on YouTube. So we appreciate it. The podcast goes up in a few minutes. So if you're listening on the podcast feed, we appreciate it. And as always, DMs are open, emails open, johnmarksmedia@gmail.com or at johnmarksmedia on socials. And we'll be back on Monday. Tyler, have a good weekend. Is Penn State's not playing this weekend?
It's bye this weekend. That means I gotta go to my wife's baby shower now because they don't play. So it's a whole ordeal.
So you schedule the baby shower is this weekend.
Yes, yeah, tomorrow.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's fun. So do you get to come? Are you there the whole time, or do you come later?
No, I'll be there. I want to help with unloading the decorations and loading up the gifts, and I'm gonna get a free meal out of it too. I might as well take But yes, I'll be there for the whole time.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Have fun this weekend, everybody. We'll be back, and Monday is going to be a game day. So we'll talk to you Monday at 8 a.m. Everybody, have a good weekend. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.